is not a new concept. History has shown us the experiences of the historic voices and martyrs. Have you been struggling with pain in the past? Do you need help dealing with things that are holding you back from achieving all that you want in life? Tune in to My Pain, Your Gain, hosted by Pastor Arthur Williams. This show is designed to help the next generation accomplish the goals they've set out to attain through practical conversations. Join in and find how to turn prior pain into glorious gain.
What's up, My Pain, Your Gain family? Hey, I miss you guys. It's been a minute. It's been a while. But listen, we're back. We're live 10 o'clock a.m. every Saturday. My Pain, Your Gain. It's good to see you guys. Thank you for sticking in there with us. Listen, I thank you for your patience. And thank God for Bishop Jackson and the work that he's done. And we're in a new facility, so we're thankful and we're grateful for the opportunity to be live with you again for My Pain, Your Gain. Listen, I didn't abandon you guys, and I'm glad you didn't abandon me. So here we are where the real keeps it real. And I have a second time guest on the show on today. My brother from another mother. I'm going to continue to say that because that's my man, that's my boy. So y'all know who he is. His name is Pastor Ron Rawls. What's up, man?
What's going on, boss man?
What's up, brother? Y'all, this is my pastor, man. This is my mentor, and again, we got him live. And so to avoid all of the he's already introduced you guys to himself, but he's also an activist. He also out in the community, and we covered that last time. And so there's some things that have been bothering me for the past couple of weeks. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, I just want to have some dialogue about some of the issues that we're facing. We know about the Boston Celtics head coach with what he's facing. Even though he was wrong, he had some issues, but at the end of the day, was he given a fair opportunity, a fair chance? We can go down the list of Colin Kaepernick, was kicked out the league for just taking a knee. He just took a knee, and he's kicked out of the NFL. And then Josh Brown, who's a white kicker, was just suspended. He was just suspended for beating his wife, but you never hear about it again. Why does it, when it comes to our race, our color, the minorities, why does it always go to the next level when it comes to us? And so that's what we wanted to talk about on tonight, Pastor. And so I want to get your input on just some of the issues that we face as being Black men in America.
I think we just have to start out by knowing that, I mean, that's how it is. That's how it's been. That's how, the world that's influenced by Caucasians. That's how they designed everything to attempt to make sure that they in their minds stay in a superior place. And so whatever laws, constitutions, or whatever they establish, it's always with them in mind and keeping them, at the top of the food chain in their own minds. And so there's never been justice that was based on equity in this country or any country where the Europeans are I won't even say dominant where they exist. And so I think the thing that we need to make sure that we do is never get to the point to thinking that some kind of way that equality has been achieved or fairness, is the rule of the day. It'll never be that. And so as we live our lives, we have to come from that standpoint and always be willing to do what you're doing, speak up and talk about it, never get silent about it, because it's happening. But at the same time, don't jump off a bridge because it's what they do. It's what they know.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Yeah, it was bothering me because, he had another known coach, in the league that's well known throughout the league. And he's able to, and I know it's different policies for different teams, and I was really trying to do my research to see what the different policies were for the Boston Celtics compared to the LA Lakers. But I know in corporate America, we face those issues as well, just on our regular jobs. And I faced that a couple of years ago, as well as I went from being, walking into a job, getting to the highest peak, and then um, when I didn't want to cow tie, and when didn't want to do what they asked me to do, that I felt was against my beliefs. That's when I end up started getting demoted and eventually out the door. And so I felt that pressure and that heat, just for being who I am, and also being an outspoken individual. What advice could you give, Pastor, with um, when you're in a situation such as that on your job in the corporate space, and you feel like you're being oppressed? What advice would you give a person that's really not really outspoken, and they really don't know how to express themselves, but they know they're being mistreated? How what advice could you give that person or that individual that feels like um, they're in a situation where they're being oppressed on their jobs or wherever in their community?
Well, I think wisdom would tell us every time is never lose sight of who you are in the eyes of others. And so, we know that we're kings and we're queens. We know that we're gifted. We know that we're powerful. But there are others from the day that they were born who don't see us, that way. And so we, first of all, we got to remember, who we are and who we are in the eyes of others. And so knowing that, don't get so comfortable to where we feel like we can do what they can do. That's the first piece. And so you got to ingest this piece, but we got to be smart too. Exactly. We can't ever get so comfortable and think that we've arrived, because sometimes those of us who are making gains, we get to thinking that we can do what they do. Exactly. We don't. Donald Trump told you he can shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue. He ain't going to jail. And exactly. And he told the truth. And so, but some of us, we lose focus on how they look at us and think we can do what they do. And so one thing that I always do is make sure that I keep my name in a place to where God can step in and deal with the other stuff that comes up. But we can't make the same mistakes they make and then think that we're going to receive the same consequences. So first look at self and make sure that that whatever I'm doing it in an excellent manner, and I'm doing it beyond reproach. And I know that we're not perfect, but in order to give God a chance to even the playing field or lift us above, we got to make sure we do our part in keeping our names clean. And then from that point, we have to be sure that we don't get too trusting. Don't get too trusting of others with our future in their hand. It's important that we build our own, that we establish our own. Marcus Garvey tried to tell us, and but we have to be sure that we build our own, we establish our own, we build our own community. Stop letting people come into our communities and build wealth off of our backs. Get to the place to where we can't just talking about each other and saying, hey, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. Ain't going to fix it. We have to begin to go in, work together, invest, and then we build wealth with our dollars and keep those dollars in our community, so they don't have the type of leverage that they have. You can't fire me if I got my own. I can talk as much as I want if I got my own, and we got to put ourselves in a position to where our tongues are not tied because someone else really has control. You got athletes, they make millions of dollars, but guess what? They got owners that make billions of dollars. They're literally owners. And so they might be millionaires, but they're millionaires with owners. And you have to always remember that. That's why people like LeBron and people like that are saying, hey, We want to buy our own team.
Our own stuff.
We're telling you, I'm making a lot of money, but I want to own it. And we have to be that way in every aspect of life and stop trusting people that have never shown that they have our best interests at heart. Stop trusting them to want to someday just seem like they're just going to change and have our best interest at heart, but they're not going to change.
Exactly. Man, I knew you was a prophet, man. You started going right into my next question because you really kind of answered it, man. So my next question, because here I am sitting in the house and I'm just thinking about, everything that's going on. And I'm like, so this question I have for you, do you think we got to the point we wanted our children not to grow up the way we did in certain aspects? And because of that, we kind of neglected our communities because we wanted a better spot for our children, but we ended up neglecting where we grew up, and now those places are in the shams and in the shambles, like you were saying, with LeBron wanting to own their own stuff, buy their own things, own their own communities. I feel like we should be able to do that coming together, which reminds me of the Four Leopards. All of them had the same issue, but they strategized and came together. I remember every time we went out to, march, every time we went out to walk, we had a plan, we had a strategy. I feel like the only way that works is, like you said earlier, is coming together. But do you feel like, because like you talked about equity as well, but do you feel like that some of us have neglected our communities because we didn't want we want to pull our children from that space, and we just kind of neglected that space?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it neglect, because I think you can still sometimes you have to, because we're not always as wise as we should be. You got to preserve self first, and some of our communities, sometimes we're our worst enemy, and so we do have a responsibility to put our children in a position to where they are higher than us, and so they shouldn't start out where we were.
Exactly.
So we have to lift them up and put them in a position, but I think we still have to go back and make an investment. And so if we say, you know what, I don't really like what's going on in my condition now, or the resources that's being put in there, and so I'm not going to put my child in that situation. But I personally am going to go back and put the work in so that generations coming behind me can have, kind of like when we started the charter school, we didn't like the way our children were being educated. And so if you don't like it, what you do, you go start your own. So you go and put work in to make it better and to build it up. But I might not necessarily want my child to be on that front line. I'll get on the front line, but I don't necessarily want my child. And so people have a right to choose that. I think what happens is when we forget, who we are and don't make that investment. So I went to a PWI, I went to University of Florida.
Yeah.
But the bulk of my money that goes to schools, I send my money to Edward Waters.
Yeah, Waters College.
And so even though I went there and got the education from there, they got money, exactly. And so if, when I'm being generous about my money, I'm sending it to an institution that's educating our children. And so I think that's the piece right there that we have to make sure, as God blesses us, we got to go back and invest in our own. And I kind of, even like you talking about sports, I even like what Deion Sanders is doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's not, if he ever decides to leave, you can't call him a sellout, because he's brought so much good attention to it. And and others need to do the same. Others need to do the same thing. And so I think that's what we need to do. But we don't necessarily have to keep our family, in a dangerous situation. Mm-hmm. But if we notice those situations are dangerous, we got to go back and say, let me put the work in so children that look like my children don't have to grow up, worried about gunshots and things like that. A lot of this stuff self-inflicted. Over here in Gainesville, and you know me, I done fought the police. We don't went toe to toe with them. We don't went in front of their doorstep and shut their traffic down right in front of their doorstep and dared them to do something. But at the same time, if I got a brother being stupid and he's terrorizing our community, I'm not gonna go and stand up for him just because he's black, because to me he's just as much as a detriment to our community than the police that disrespects us. If our senior citizens can't even sit on their porch anymore and relax because they out there shooting like they're in the wild west, both of them are my enemy. And only difference is with the police officer, I might come a little harder because I want to try to educate my own. But if my own just don't want to do right, I'm not going to support them as they terrorize our community. And so we do have a responsibility as we gain power, influence, and money to go back and fight the fight, no matter who the enemy is that's trying to destroy our communities, whether they look like us or whether they don't look like us. We have to make our communities better for the generations coming up behind us.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
And then it builds wealth, because when we improve those communities, where I was concerned, I still own the house that I grew up in, that's in our community, but I own a couple other houses that's in other communities, and those other houses, they build wealth because the property value goes up, and I have a responsibility in my old community to help that community come up so that those property values can go up. When we go and make those communities better, then we actually build wealth too, because those property values go up in those communities, but they just not gonna get better on their own. We have to do things to make sure that the things that drive property values up are happening in those communities also, and then our community, our people can also build wealth as it relates to owning property.
Exactly. That's I'm glad you went into that investing. That's exactly what I was leading into with saying neglect. Not I want my kids to be in a better spot, but also going back, and I love how we go back in our communities. It don't matter where we are, and we invest into that community, and that's what I love about what you do, and that's why I'm glad I brought you on the show today to discuss this, because you do a boatload of investing in the community. Wherever you are, wherever you are planted, you invest in that community. And so I want to give you your flowers too, as a strong pastor at the same time as we're discussing this topic. But you plant seeds and you make sure you till the ground. And once that harvest started flowing, then you still nurture that harvest. And so that's the great thing about you, man. And I just want to throw that at you, man, and give you flowers.
I appreciate it. I remember when when my kids were young, I was raising them in the neighborhood I grew up in. And my daughter get a new little scooter. She don't know the streets like I know the streets. And so she gonna jump on her scooter instead of just walking to school. She gonna jump on her new little scooter and drive it to school. And then when she get out of school, it's gone.
It's gone. It ain't locked up or nothing.
So I can't keep my kids in that kind of situation.
Exactly.
But what I can do is I can go to those same schools and mentor and run mentoring programs to teach children that this is not an option. You don't do this. Is not, if you want something, this is not how you get it. And so I might choose to take my daughter out of that situation because I don't want her to become accustomed to that. Exactly. But I still got to go invest into the children that's there to teach them that we want a better neighborhood than this right here. We don't just ride down the street and throw our stuff out the window. That's how we did with the kids with the summer camp. We walk down the street picking up paper and kids, and I'm saying, our community deserves better than this right here. This is not right. And little kid telling me, well, that's how my daddy do. When he finished, he said, me throw it out the window. And so now I got to teach something that they're not even being taught at home, but somebody got to teach them that you treat your community better than that right there. And so we got to make that investment in the community, but we might not always choose to put our children in that situation. Some do. And either way, you can't, the parent, each parent has their own individual responsibility to their children, and whatever they choose, you got to say, well, they that's what they think is best for their child. But the main thing is that we go back and put that work in, even fighting for them with policies and things like that against the government, with the government. Saying, no, you're not going to implement these kind of policies in our community, and we be silent about it. So we do have to go put that work in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we close out, Pastor, man, I just want to ask you, man. I know we never talked about this, but when we was in St. Augustine and that in the middle of the fight, um, a picture popped up. I don't know if you saw. I tagged you in it.
Yeah, I saw it.
But a picture popped up, and it just reminded me of the times, when we stood together side by side. In that moment, um, and going through that fight, man, was there any time that I know you felt pressure, I know you felt the weight, but as we close this thing out, this will be for somebody out there in my Paying Your Game land. How were you able to persevere and fight through that season of your life?
Yeah, I had to be there. I didn't have a choice. And so, when God puts some on, you got to be there. I would much rather be home chilling with my wife than sitting out, fussing and fighting with some rednecks, and in reality, they were not, many of them were not that intelligent. They really weren't even on my level to fuss with, but
Exactly.
but I was able to use their ignorance to promote the message that we were trying to get out there. That this is what y'all look like. And so, yeah, y'all come on out so I can show what y'all look like, so that those that do have influence can see that, wow, this is what we're defending. And so, but the whole fight, you just don't have a choice. It's like when you're called to do something, you just got to do it, or you're a failure. And and I choose to not be a failure. And but I would much rather not have to fight that stuff. But I'm not going to be a failure either. And if God calls me to do something, I'm going to do it. And and anybody to get in the way gonna have to deal with what come with it. But
Exactly.
God didn't put us in a fight to fail.
He put us in there to win, and we always trying to win.
Right.
It don't matter. We always trying to win.
And that's what this initial topic that you're talking about. Yeah, we they ain't gonna do right, so we still got to speak up. But then we got to have private conversations and be like, come on, we got to move smarter.
Exactly.
We got to move smarter because we know the consequences gonna be. So yeah, it's work. We got to go fight for you, but bro, you got to move smarter too now, because you ain't one of them. We still who we still who we are in their eyes.
Yeah, and we have to use the brain that God has given us, and that wisdom, as we talk about all the time. And so, like I said, man, I noticed anytime we went out, it don't matter whether it was church or anytime we went out to fight or whatever, it was always a strategy. And I feel like understanding who you are and knowing who you are, just because you're up there, you still have to maintain your integrity in that season, because you will be elevated and God will be the one elevate you. But you also have to maintain your integrity. And as I stick closer to you, that comes so clear every day. If you keep your name right and keep your name up, God will do the elevating, and you just enjoy the trip.
That's it.
So that's what I admire about you, man, is you keep your name clean, and that's how we survive. There's nothing negative against anyone, but yeah, we all make mistakes, but you don't want to put yourself in a situation to where it costs you, your family, it costs you your livelihood for a year or whatever. So, but in the thick of it, like you said, they don't care. We just a flagship, and we can be replaced.
That's right.
We can always be replaced. And so, going in there with a mentality. So what I gather from this, my Paying Your Game family, is keep your name up, maintain your integrity. We may fall, we may make mistakes, we may make bad decisions, but don't allow those decisions to be detrimental to your future and to your your immediate destiny. And so, thank you, Pastor. Any final words that you can encourage our viewers with one last time before we close this thing down?
Yeah, when you was talking about strategy, I looked up. I always keep wherever my desk is, the St. Augustine games or wherever it is. I keep this piece of paper up that talks about the strategy, so I can stay consistent. And so my strategy is 3-pronged. It's confront, educate, and build. And and I'm looking at it, that's what I'm looking up. But to confront means you disrupt status quo. Whatever is accepted that you know is not right, be willing to disrupt it. And then educate. We got to educate our people. You know, right. I'm ready to tear something down, but I need to educate you, because once it's tore down, you got to have the sense or the knowledge to build it back up. And then the build is just empower our community, bring resources in our community, know how to keep money in our community. And that's what I stand on: confront, educate, and build.
All right, my Playing Your Game family, that's your word for this week. Thank you, Pastor.
All right,
coming on again. Appreciate you, man, and thank you for your insight, your wisdom, as well as the knowledge that you expressed on this show today, man. Appreciate you.
All right, bro. You take care, man.
All right, you too, bro. Listen, family, thank you for joining in this week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of My Playing Your Game, hosted by your boy, Pastor Art. Listen, I'm glad to be back with you. I hope you're glad to be back with me. I missed y'all. I hope y'all miss me. Listen, have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. May heaven smile upon you. God bless you.
November 5th at the Paxson Revival Center with special guests, the Swanee Quintet, the Williams Singers, and more. Tickets $40 in advance, $50 at the door. VIP available. They're available at Eventbrite, CJ Records, or Paxson Discount Christian Bookstore. For info, call 904